the way I've kind of oriented this slide is to look at this overall process called source to pay. So if you think about procurement as a process, a lot of people kind of look at the end-to-end process as a source to pay process. So we're planning our spend and the suppliers we're going to use, whether that's tied into a planning and budgeting process or some other process. We're then really engaging. We strategize on how we're going to engage the suppliers, and we engage them commercially. We come up with our contract, and then we're going to manage them against the things that we want from them. That is kind of the sourcing and supplier management, strategic procurement. And then you have kind of the execution piece, right? E-procurement, catalogs, requisitions, POs, receipts, invoices, payments, kind of end-to-end. Now, honestly, a lot of the process actually starts here with the need. A stakeholder has a need, and it might start in e-procurement, and that's why you then need to feed that back into the sourcing process, and you have to be able to move very quickly. So there are lots of systems that are out there that deal with various pieces of this, but more and more what you're seeing is kind of a trend from kind of a big ERP system that kind of does a lot of these things sort of well, but really oriented around the power, quote, power, buyer, which is often around the transactional side of the house. That problem led to a lot of best-of-breed cloud-based tools that popped up in e-sourcing and contract management and supplier management and just e-procurement and e-invoicing. So people said, gosh, we really have some pain points in this process, and depending on your organization, you kind of, jump into those. So you start standing up all these, niche cloud-based systems, which is great from a process standpoint within that sub-process. The problem, though, is that when you're really trying to manage an end-to-end process to really bring best practices and really, make to drive more value into it, now you're creating almost like a version of, SharePoint anarchy, kind of standing up lots of little different, tools and siloed systems, and you create this data proliferation problem. So what you're starting to see now is really a convergence towards source-to-pay suites and P2P suites as well. So this notion of how do you get the kind of integration that data integration and process integration that you kind of got with the old school ERP systems, which were these integrated, business management systems, but doing it in a way that's actually, world-class functionality or best-in-class, whatever, really bringing those best practices that I was talking about into the process. And I mean, there are a lot of related areas to this process. There's P cards, and there's supply chain, and there's asset management, and there's industry-specific tools. So I mean, there's there's other systems that you have to kind of integrate to and care and feed for. But what you're tending to see is a trend where it's like, okay, we've got some kind of legacy system or ERP system. How do we, use that, let's say, for the system of record? So for, like, let's say, supplier master, and closing the books and make sure that the GL is accurate and working great. How do we integrate with that? So you see like three little integration arrows in terms of how do you make that integration. So I kind of call this, there's the system of engagement or process, there's the system of record, and there's system of decision around analytics. And really the big thing is use best-of-breed systems to really manage those end-to-end processes, that system of process and engagement to layer on top of, you might have multiple ERPs and legacy systems and whatever, but have a really good system that's going to engage end users through this end-to-end process, and then integrate some of the master data that you need to, and off to the side, have some analytics, whether it comes from that system of process, that source-to-pay suite, or whether it's something that you have, that sits on top, have the data that's really going to drive you to the improvement. So that's really what you're seeing around trends is use best-of-breed to get more value out of ERP rather than just completely throwing it away. And you got to work with IT on this because sometimes they have a vested interest around caring and feeding for those custom systems, but move away from point apps to these suites, move out of, having your own on-premise systems into the cloud. I mean, that is just the mega trend. There's no, really everybody's getting their custom stuff and moving it towards vanilla and moving it to the cloud. Focus on these business outcomes. Don't just install the software and say, oh, we're good to go. Nope, it's no good unless it's actually aligned to the business outcomes. And the way to do that is not to just have these empty applications that's like, oh, good luck, you're on your own. It's more and more, how do we bring best practices and capabilities through the cloud and through service providers into the tool to really use the technology, not to just support an existing process, but to really transform the process. And that's where you're starting to see new things around ecosystems and the providers, let's say, using their partners and their install bases to really drive new insights and new value streams. And we could spend, just a whole bunch of time on just that topic. But that's generally what's happening in the technology trend.